The celebration inside the Imperial War Room reached its peak as holographic displays showed Redwood Station burning. High Admiral Kelvin raised his glass while 300 officers cheered around him. They had just wiped out an entire human colony in less than 4 hours, and the footage played on repeat across every screen in the chamber. "This is how we maintain order," Kelvin announced, his voice carrying across the massive hall. 2 million humans dead, and the rest of the galaxy watches. They see what happens when anyone questions Imperial authority. Commander Ira stood in the back, her face carefully neutral. She had spent 5 years studying human culture and history as part of Imperial intelligence operations. What she learned kept her awake at night, but nobody wanted to hear warnings about a species that had never fired a shot in anger during their 2 centuries as galactic citizens. The Empire controlled 600 worlds. Humans occupied only 40 scattered planets, mostly agricultural colonies and mining operations. Their ships looked outdated, their weapons seemed basic, and their military doctrine emphasized defense over aggression. Every strategic assessment labeled them as harmless. Iris knew better. She had read about something humans called World War II, a conflict from their pre-space age that killed 70 million people. She learned about nuclear weapons and the doctrine of mutually assured destruction. She discovered that humans had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times before finally reaching the stars. They understood total warfare in ways the Empire had forgotten during 3,000 years of easy victories. "Commander Iris, why so quiet?" Kelvin called out, noticing her standing apart from the celebration. "You spent years studying these humans. Tell us, will they surrender now or do we need to burn another colony?" The room fell silent, hundreds of eyes turning toward her. Iris felt the weight of their attention and chose her words carefully. "Admiral, in all my research, I found something troubling. Humans have a saying about their own nature. They call themselves apex predators who chose to stop hunting." Kelvin laughed and the room joined him. "Predators? Have you seen their military? They have 70 ships total. We deployed 300 just for this operation. They are farmers and miners, not warriors." "Respectfully, Admiral, their absence of warfare might indicate wisdom rather than weakness. Every species they encountered in their expansion received peaceful contact. They signed every treaty we offered. They accepted secondary status in galactic politics without protest. But their own history shows what they become when pushed into corners." "Then they should stay in those corners," Kelvin said dismissively. "Redwood Station was their warning. If they want to survive as a species, they will accept Imperial rule without question." 3 days later, the celebration ended. Ambassador David Cross appeared on every communications channel in Imperial space simultaneously. His face looked older than his 50 years, gray hair uncombed, eyes red from crying. Behind him stood complete darkness, no flags or symbols, just empty black space. "My name is David Cross. I have served as humanity's ambassador to your empire for 12 years. I believed in peaceful coexistence. I believed in diplomacy. I believed that reason could overcome pride." His voice remained steady despite the tears on his face. "3 days ago, your forces destroyed Redwood Station. Among the 2.3 million dead were my wife Sarah, my daughter Amy, who was 7 years old, and my son Peter, who was 9. They died because your admiral wanted to send a message about imperial power." Kelvin watched the broadcast from his quarters, annoyed at the interruption of his evening. He expected begging or threats, the usual response from defeated enemies. "You have one standard cycle," Cross continued. "Withdraw all Imperial forces from human space. Begin preparations for reparations. Agree to third-party arbitration for your crimes." "Is he serious?" Kelvin muttered, reaching for his communication device to order Cross arrested. "This is not a negotiation," Cross said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "This is not a threat. This is a timeline. We are giving you 60 standard days to avoid what comes next." The ambassador paused, and something changed in his expression. The grief remained, but underneath it lay something else, something cold and ancient. "You believe we are weak because we chose peace. You believe our small military means we cannot fight. You are wrong on both counts. We chose peace because we know what we become in war. We kept our military small because we never wanted to use what we built in the dark." Kelvin froze, his hand hovering over the communication panel. "When your deadline expires, we will demonstrate why peaceful species frighten us the most. We will show you what humanity becomes when you murder our children. Your outer territories will burn first, then your secondary worlds, then your core systems. We will work our way inward until we reach your homeworld, and by then, you will beg us to accept your surrender." Cross leaned closer to the camera, and his final words carried across 600 Imperial worlds. "You wanted to send a message about power. Consider this our reply. Your worlds will burn, Admiral Kelvin, all of them, and history will remember that you started this war by killing children." The transmission ended, leaving every screen across the Empire displaying simple text in human languages, then translated into Imperial Standard. 60 days, count them carefully. Kelvin immediately sent orders to arrest Cross, but the ambassador had vanished. Human colonies began evacuating civilians to unknown locations. Human ships disappeared from every tracking system. The 40 known human worlds went silent. Imperial intelligence reported no military buildup, no fleet movements, no preparations for war. As far as their sensors could detect, humanity had simply stopped existing. Iris submitted her resignation that night. In her final report, she wrote a single sentence that would be ignored until it was far too late. "We are not fighting farmers and miners. We are fighting a species that climbed to the top of their food chain by outlasting everything that tried to kill them, and we just killed their children." 53 days remained on humanity's deadline when the Empire made its move. 3 battle fleets launched from different sectors, each containing over 100 warships. The plan was simple: occupy human space before they could organize resistance, force immediate surrender, and prove that Ambassador Cross's warning was nothing but empty words from a grieving man. Fleet Admiral Norton commanded the largest group, his flagship Eternal Dominion leading 200 vessels toward the human colony of Haven's Rest. Intelligence reports showed it as humanity's largest agricultural world, home to 8 million people. Taking it would cripple human food production and force them to negotiate. "All ships report ready status," his tactical officer announced. "We should arrive in Haven's Rest system within 6 hours." Norton studied the tactical display showing his massive fleet in perfect formation. Each ship represented centuries of imperial military tradition. His ancestors had conquered dozens of species with vessels like these. Humans would be no different. "Admiral, I have a priority message from Commander Iris," his communications officer said hesitantly. "The one who resigned," Norton shook his head. "Ignore it. She lost her nerve after spending too much time studying primitives." The message played anyway. Someone in communications thought it important enough to override protocols. "Admiral Norton, please reconsider this deployment. My research indicates humans have been preparing for large-scale conflict since before they joined the galactic community. Their peaceful behavior was never weakness. It was patience. You are walking into something you do not understand." Norton deleted the message with an angry gesture. Fear and doubt had no place in military operations. The Empire had crushed resistance for 3 millennia. Humanity would learn the same lesson as countless others. 6 hours later, the fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at Haven's Rest. The planet floated alone in the void. No orbital stations, no defensive platforms, no ships of any kind. Scanners detected zero life signs on the surface. 8 million people had vanished completely. Where did they go? Norton demanded, staring at the empty world. Run full spectrum analysis. Find me something. His science team worked frantically, searching for any trace of the missing population. Heat signatures, radiation, communication signals. Anything that might indicate where 8 million humans disappeared to. Admiral, the other two fleets are reporting identical situations, his communications officer said quietly. Every human colony we targeted is completely abandoned. Total evacuation of all personnel. Norton felt cold fear creeping into his thoughts. Moving 8 million people required massive logistics, hundreds of transport ships, months of planning. Humanity had evacuated at least 20 million people from multiple worlds in less than 60 days without Imperial intelligence detecting any of it. Sir, new contact, his tactical officer called out. Single ship human design appearing at extreme sensor range. On the main display, a vessel materialized from nowhere. It looked smaller than a standard Imperial destroyer, painted flat black with no identification markings. The design was unfamiliar, not matching any known human ship class. Hail them, Norton ordered. Demand they surrender and explain where their people went. The response came immediately, audio only, a woman's voice speaking calmly. This is Captain Maria Holt of the United Nations Space Command vessel Reckoning. You were warned. You ignored the warning. Now you learn. I am Fleet Admiral Norton of the Imperial Navy, he replied, keeping his voice firm. You are outnumbered 200 to 1. Power down your vessel and prepare to be boarded. You still do not understand, Holt said. We gave you 60 days. You have 7 remaining. Instead of withdrawing, you invaded. So now we demonstrate why you should have listened. Every system on every Imperial ship died simultaneously. Life support, engines, weapons, communications, even basic electrical systems all stopped functioning at exactly the same moment. 200 warships became 200 coffins drifting in the dark. Norton grabbed his emergency light, the only thing still working on the entire ship. Through the viewport, he saw the Reckoning moving between his paralyzed fleet. It fired no weapons, launched no missiles, simply passed near each vessel. As it passed, those ships began dissolving. The hull metal broke apart at the molecular level, turning solid matter into drifting atoms. Norton watched the destroyer nearest to him simply cease to exist, 3,000 crew members dying in seconds as their ship became dust. Emergency power, Norton screamed into the darkness. Get me emergency power. Nothing responded. His flagship was as dead as everything else. The Reckoning stopped its destruction after eliminating 30 ships. It reactivated communications on the remaining vessels, letting them watch and understand. Your Admiral Kelvin wanted to send a message, Captain Holt's voice echoed through every dead ship. Here is our reply. You cannot fight what you cannot understand. You cannot win against an enemy who has been preparing for this for 200 years. Norton's hands shook as he clutched his emergency light. We dissolved your ships using quantum displacement technology. We shut down your fleet using electromagnetic pulse weapons you did not know existed. We evacuated 20 million people through dimensional fold points your science has not discovered yet. Every peaceful year you thought we were weak, we were building. Every treaty we signed without complaint, we were preparing. Every time you dismissed us as farmers and miners, we were becoming something you should have feared. The Reckoning began moving away, leaving Norton and his surviving crews drifting helplessly. You have 7 days remaining on Ambassador Cross's deadline. Withdraw from human space or every Imperial world will burn. We will start with your outer territories and work inward, exactly as promised. This was your final warning. What comes next is war and you will lose. The transmission ended, leaving 170 Imperial warships floating dead in space. Norton activated his emergency beacon, knowing rescue would take days. Around him in the darkness, thousands of Imperial officers faced the same reality. They had laughed at humanity's warning. Nobody was laughing anymore. Commander Iris received the battle reports 6 hours later. She read them 3 times, hoping she had misunderstood. When the truth became clear, she sent one final message to the Imperial Senate before destroying her communication device. They showed mercy by leaving survivors. Next time they will not. The deadline expired at exactly midnight Imperial Standard Time. Across the Empire, people waited to see if humanity would follow through on their promise. Most believed it was still a bluff, angry words from a species too small to threaten the established order. The first world to burn was Carthan IV, an outer territory planet housing 50 million Imperial citizens and a massive military garrison of 200,000 soldiers. The world served as a forward staging base for Imperial operations in 3 sectors. Commander Iris watched the assault unfold from her private terminal, having hacked into military communication networks before they could revoke her access. What she saw made her sick. 3 human ships appeared in orbit around Carthan IV at dawn. They were different from the Reckoning, larger and marked with strange symbols that Imperial databases could not identify. A broadcast reached every communication device on the planet. This is the UNSC Harbinger. You have 48 hours to evacuate all civilians from this world. We are targeting military infrastructure only. Civilian transports will not be harmed. Refuse evacuation at your own risk. The Imperial Garrison Commander, General Marcus Fell, responded with confidence. We have 200,000 troops and full planetary defenses. You have 3 ships. Leave now or be destroyed. The human response was simple. 48 hours, your choice. General Fell chose to fortify his position. He believed 3 human ships could not possibly threaten an entire planet. He ordered all defensive batteries to full readiness and positioned his troops to repel any landing attempt. Then he waited for humanity to make their fatal mistake. 48 hours passed with no human action. The 3 ships simply orbited, waiting. When the deadline expired, they moved. No weapons fire came from the human vessels. Instead, they deployed what looked like small satellites, hundreds of them, forming a grid around the entire planet. Each satellite activated simultaneously, and Carthan IV's atmosphere began to change. Iris watched the atmospheric readings in horror. The satellites were altering the chemical composition of the air itself, increasing carbon dioxide levels while removing oxygen. The humans were not bombing the world or attacking civilians. They were making it impossible to breathe. All military personnel, this is General Fell, the garrison commander broadcast on emergency channels. Hold your positions. The humans cannot sustain this. Our life support will outlast their assault. He was wrong. Within 6 hours, soldiers began passing out from oxygen deprivation. Within 12 hours, the military bases lost primary power trying to maintain life support for 200,000 troops. Within 24 hours, General Fell authorized full evacuation. The 3 human ships allowed every evacuation transport to leave unharmed. They watched as military personnel fled in panic, abandoning weapons and equipment in their desperation to breathe. 200,000 soldiers became refugees without the humans firing a single shot. When the last transport cleared orbit, the human ships deployed a second wave of satellites. These ones reversed the atmospheric changes, restoring normal air composition within 3 days. The planet remained intact and livable. Just empty. Do you understand now? Captain Holt's voice broadcasted across all channels. We could have killed everyone on Carthan IV. We chose not to. We gave warning. We allowed evacuation. We preserved the world itself. This is human mercy. Do not mistake it for weakness. The Imperial Senate watched in stunned silence as the same pattern repeated across 11 more outer territory worlds. Human forces appeared, gave 48-hour warnings, evacuated civilians, neutralized military forces through atmospheric modification, and left the planets intact but abandoned. High Admiral Kelvin, the man who ordered the destruction of Redwood Station, called for total mobilization. They are not invincible. They are using tricks and technology to frighten us. We vastly outnumber them. We must strike their homeworld, Earth, and end this. Iris knew what was coming next. She sent encrypted warnings to every contact she trusted, then went into hiding. The Empire gathered its largest fleet in history. 400 warships, including their most powerful dreadnoughts, assembled for a direct assault on humanity's homeworld. They would bypass the outer territories and strike at the heart of human space, kill the head, and the body would fall. Fleet Admiral Norton, rescued from his earlier defeat, commanded the operation. He had learned caution but still believed in Imperial superiority through numbers. 400 ships against whatever Earth could muster seemed like certain victory. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, heading directly for the Sol system where Earth waited. They never arrived. Human forces intercepted them in the Azure Nebula, a massive cloud of ionized gas between Imperial and human space. Norton expected a desperate defensive action, humanity's last stand before losing their homeworld. Instead, he found himself facing 15 human warships. 15, his tactical officer confirmed, checking sensors repeatedly. Admiral, they sent 15 ships to stop 400. Norton felt ice in his stomach. Either humans were suicidal or they knew something he did not. All ships combat formation, he ordered. Weapons free, destroy them. The human ships did not run. They spread out through the nebula, using the gas clouds for cover. Norton ordered his fleet to pursue, confident that numbers would prevail. That was his second fatal mistake. The nebula gas ignited. Human ships had been seeding the entire cloud with reactive particles for hours before the Imperial fleet arrived. When they triggered the ignition sequence, 3 trillion cubic kilometers of gas became a weapon. The explosion was not enough to destroy ships, but it disabled sensors, disrupted communications, and separated the Imperial fleet into confused groups. Then the human drones appeared. Thousands of autonomous combat units, each one controlled by artificial intelligence far beyond Imperial computing capability, swarmed the blind and scattered Imperial vessels. They struck weak points with precision, targeting engines and weapons while avoiding crew sections. Within 2 hours, the Imperial fleet was crippled, not destroyed but helpless. Norton sat in his damaged command chair, watching a message from Captain Holt appear on his barely functioning display. You tried to kill our homeworld, now you have nothing. Surrender or die, choose quickly. The Imperial Senate met in emergency session as reports flooded in from every sector. 400 ships crippled in the Azure Nebula. 15 outer territory worlds evacuated and neutralized. 200,000 soldiers turned into refugees. The Empire was losing a war it started less than 3 months ago. Emperor Alvin, barely 25 years old and thrust into power after his father's sudden death, listened to his advisors argue. Half demanded immediate surrender. The other half insisted the Empire could still win through sheer determination and numbers. High Admiral Kelvin stood before them all, his uniform covered in medals from 100 victories against other species. We still have 600 worlds and millions of soldiers. Humanity occupies only 40 planets. We can overwhelm them through attrition. Commander Iris, recently brought back from hiding by the Emperor himself, stood to respond. She had been given special permission to address the Senate, one last chance to make them understand reality. Admiral, humanity is not fighting a war of attrition, she said calmly. They are fighting a war of demonstration, Every action they take is designed to show us something we refuse to see. And what is that? Kelvin demanded. That they have been ready for total war since before joining our community. That their peaceful behavior was strategic patience, not weakness. That they can end this conflict whenever they choose, but they are still giving us chances to surrender. The Senate chamber erupted in angry voices. How dare this junior officer suggest the mighty empire should bow to a species of farmers and miners? Iris waited for silence, then continued. They captured 12 quantum disruptor bombs from our fleet in the Azure Nebula, weapons capable of destroying entire star systems. Do you know what they did with them? The chamber went quiet. Nothing. They secured them and sent us a message. One sentence. These weapons are evil, and we will never use them unless you force our hand. They have the means to annihilate our core worlds right now, and they chose not to. Because they fear retaliation, Kelvin interrupted. No, Iris said firmly. Because they fear becoming like us. They fear what total warfare will do to their own souls. Every human communication includes evacuation warnings. Every assault targets military infrastructure while preserving civilian lives. They are fighting with one hand tied behind their backs, and they are still winning. Emperor Alvin raised his hand for silence. His youth made many senators dismiss him, but he had been studying the conflict carefully. Commander Iris, what would you recommend? Before she could answer, the chamber's main display activated without authorization. Ambassador David Cross appeared, broadcasting directly into the Imperial Senate without permission or warning. His face looked older, more tired, but his eyes burned with determination. Your Majesty, honored senators, I apologize for the intrusion, Cross began. But you need to hear this from me directly. Security forces moved to cut the transmission, but the Emperor waved them back. My wife and children died at Redwood Station. I have every reason to want your empire destroyed completely, to see your worlds burn the way mine did, to visit the same grief on imperial families that your admiral brought to my home. His voice caught, but he continued. I could order that, right now. I could tell Captain Holt and Admiral Rivera to stop holding back, to use every weapon we built during 2 centuries of fearful preparation, to demonstrate why a species that nearly destroyed itself 3 times learned to be so very good at warfare. The Senate chamber remained silent, every person focused on the grieving ambassador. But I will not do that, because my wife Sarah taught ethics at our colony university. My daughter Amy wanted to be a doctor. My son Peter loved building things. None of them would want their deaths to cause more death. None of them would want revenge that killed innocent people. Cross leaned forward, and his next words carried the weight of absolute certainty. So I am coming to your homeworld, Archon Prime, alone, unarmed. I will address your Senate in person and offer terms one final time. If you refuse, then what happens next will be on your hands, not mine. You will have chosen extinction over wisdom. The transmission ended, leaving the Senate in chaos. It is a trick, Kelvin insisted. He will bring weapons or a strike force or something. We should shoot down his ship the moment it enters our space. If we do that, we lose any chance at peace, Emperor Alvin said quietly. And we prove that we are exactly what Commander Iris says we are, a dying empire too proud to see reality. 3 days later, a single human shuttle requested permission to land at the Imperial Senate building. Scanners confirmed it carried only 1 passenger and no weapons of any kind. Ambassador David Cross had kept his word. The Senate chamber filled beyond capacity as Cross walked to the central platform. He wore a simple black suit, no decorations or symbols of office. He looked like a man attending a funeral, which in a way he was. I am going to tell you what will happen if you refuse to surrender, Cross began without preamble. Not threats, just facts. He activated a holographic display, showing the Azure Nebula battle. Our drone swarms defeated your largest fleet using technology you cannot counter. We have 3,000 more drones in reserve, manufactured in secret shipyards throughout uninhabited systems. We have been building them for 150 years. The next image showed atmospheric modification satellites. These devices can make any planet uninhabitable within hours. We have enough to deploy them on every Imperial world simultaneously. We have not done so because we still hope you will choose life over pride. The final image showed Earth, humanity's homeworld. You tried to strike at our home, you failed. We will not make the same mistake. We have mapped every Imperial core world, every senator's home planet, every military installation. We know where Emperor Alvin's mother lives, where High Admiral Kelvin's children go to school, where every person in this room keeps their families. The chamber erupted in outrage. Cross waited calmly for silence. I tell you this not to threaten your families. I tell you this so you understand that we could have already won this war by killing everyone you love, and we chose not to. Ambassador Cross stood alone before the entire Imperial Senate, one human facing the representatives of 600 worlds. His hands did not shake. His voice did not waver. He spoke with the calm certainty of a man who had already lost everything that mattered. Here are the terms, Cross said, displaying a document on every screen in the chamber. Complete withdrawal of all Imperial forces from human space within 30 days. Dismantling of 80% of your military fleet. Reparations of 50 trillion credits to be paid over 50 years. A permanent human oversight presence on Archon Prime to ensure compliance. And the trial of High Admiral Kelvin for war crimes. The outrage was immediate and deafening. Senators screamed insults. Security forces moved toward Cross, hands on weapons. High Admiral Kelvin stood with murder in his eyes. Emperor Alvin raised both hands, and slowly, reluctantly, the chamber quieted. These terms are absurd, Kelvin said, his voice shaking with rage. The Empire does not surrender. We have never surrendered in 3,000 years. We would rather die than accept such humiliation. Cross turned to face the Admiral directly. Then you will die, all of you, and every Imperial citizen who believes pride matters more than survival. We gave you every chance to avoid this. We warned you. We demonstrated our capabilities. We showed mercy when we could have shown destruction. You refused to listen. You cannot destroy 600 worlds, Kelvin insisted. You do not have enough ships, enough weapons, enough people. This is still a bluff. It is not a bluff, Commander Iris said, standing from her seat among the junior officers. I tried to tell you, Admiral. I tried to warn the Senate. Humanity has been preparing for peer-level total warfare since before they had faster-than-light travel. It is written into their very nature. She walked to stand beside Cross, facing the entire Senate. I studied human history. I read about their wars. They do not fight for conquest. They fight for survival. And when fighting for survival, they will burn everything down rather than lose. It is not rational. It is not strategic. It is simply who they are. Then they are no different than any other aggressive species, a senator shouted. No, Cross said quietly. We are much worse because we know exactly what we are doing. We understand the cost. We feel the guilt. And we will do it anyway because you gave us no choice. Emperor Alvin finally spoke, his young voice cutting through the chaos. What happens if we refuse these terms? Cross met the Emperor's eyes. In 72 hours we will demonstrate our final weapon. We will do it in an uninhabited system where no one will be harmed. You will watch and understand what we have been holding back. Then you will have one final chance to surrender. If you refuse, we will begin targeting your secondary worlds, 50 planets, 50 billion people. We will evacuate them if they cooperate. We will kill them if they do not. You claim you are not monsters, Kelvin said, yet you threaten to murder 50 billion people. I am not threatening, Cross replied. I'm explaining consequences. You started this war by killing 2.3 million civilians, including children. We responded with surgical strikes against military targets. You escalated by trying to destroy our homeworld. We defeated your fleet without killing everyone aboard. You still refused to surrender, so now we escalate again. This is the pattern of war, Admiral. You taught us this pattern. He turned back to Emperor Alvin. Your Majesty, you are young. This war began before your coronation. You did not order the attack on Redwood Station. You inherited a conflict started by men too proud to see their own decline. You have one chance to be the emperor who saved the empire instead of the one who watched it burn. The Senate must vote, Alvin said slowly. I cannot accept surrender without their approval. Then vote quickly, Cross said. The demonstration happens in 72 hours whether you are ready or not. The Senate called for immediate recess to discuss the terms in private. Cross was escorted to quarters under guard, treated as both a diplomat and a prisoner. Commander Iris went with him voluntarily, her career in Imperial service effectively over. Do you really have a final weapon? She asked when they were alone. Yes, Cross said, sitting heavily on a chair, though I pray we never use it. What is it? Something we discovered 40 years ago, a way to destabilize stars, to make them go supernova prematurely. It requires tremendous energy and months of preparation, but it is possible. We have been preparing 12 systems since the day Redwood Station burned. Iris felt cold horror wash over her. You would destroy entire star systems, kill everyone in them. We would give them 6 months warning first, Cross said quietly. Time to evacuate everyone. But yes, if pushed far enough, we would collapse stars. Because the alternative is losing and humans do not lose. We either win or we bring everything down with us. That is madness. Yes, it is. But it is also human nature. We nearly destroyed ourselves with nuclear weapons before leaving our homeworld. We nearly destroyed ourselves with biological warfare. We nearly destroyed ourselves with artificial intelligence. Every time, we came within hours of extinction. Every time, we survived. We learned that we would rather end everything than submit to extinction. Commander Iris stared at the ambassador in horror and understanding. You are not a species. You are a galactic suicide bomb. Only if triggered, Cross said. Left alone, we are peaceful. We build, we grow, we explore. We want peace. But threaten our survival, kill our children, try to destroy us, and we become something else. Something that frightens even us. The 72 hours passed slowly. The Senate argued continuously, split between surrender and continued resistance. Emperor Alvin spent the time reading every report about humanity Cross had provided, learning about a species he had never truly understood. When the deadline arrived, Cross and the entire imperial government watched as human forces demonstrated their final weapon in a distant, uninhabited system. They watched a star that had burned for 3 billion years suddenly collapse and explode, destroying everything within 10 light years. The message was clear: surrender or watch your worlds burn, literally. The Imperial Senate chamber fell into absolute silence as the holographic display showed a star dying. 3 billion years of steady burning ended in seconds, consumed by human technology that should not exist. The demonstration system was empty, lifeless, chosen specifically because nothing would be harmed. But every senator understood the message. This could be your world, your home, your family's son. Emperor Alvin stood slowly, his youth making the moment more powerful rather than less. He was the first emperor in 3 millennia to face genuine defeat, and everyone watched to see how he would respond. I am calling for a vote, he announced. Not on whether we can win this war, we cannot. Not on whether humanity is bluffing, they are not. The vote is simple. Do we choose survival or do we choose pride? Do we accept these terms or do we watch our civilization die? High Admiral Kelvin stood immediately. Your Majesty, I must protest. The Empire has never surrendered. Our ancestors conquered the galaxy through strength and determination. To surrender now dishonors 3,000 years of history. Admiral, Alvin said quietly, our ancestors conquered species who could not fight back. They built an empire on the assumption that military superiority was permanent. They were wrong. History does not care about honor when everyone is dead. The Emperor walked to the central platform, standing where Ambassador Cross had stood days before. I have read human history. I know what they did to themselves before reaching the stars. They fought wars that killed hundreds of millions. They built weapons that could end all life on their planet. They came within minutes of total annihilation multiple times. And they survived because eventually, finally, they chose peace over pride. He turned to face High Admiral Kelvin directly. They are giving us the same choice they once gave themselves. Survive and change, or die and be forgotten. I choose survival. The vote was close. 312 senators for surrender, 288 against. The empire would live, but barely half its government agreed with saving it. High Admiral Kelvin refused to accept the vote. He stood and walked out of the chamber, followed by 70 senators who shared his views. Within hours, they commandeered military vessels and declared themselves the true empire, vowing to fight until humanity was destroyed. Ambassador Cross received the news with expected sadness. We gave them every chance, he said to Commander Iris. Now we have to finish what they started. The hunt for Kelvin's rebel fleet lasted 3 weeks. Human forces tracked them through 12 systems, offering surrender at every encounter. Kelvin refused every offer. He truly believed that determination and honor could overcome technology and preparation. The final battle happened near the Vortex Nebula, a beautiful spiral of purple and blue gas. Kelvin's 70 ships took defensive positions, ready to make their last stand. They expected human ships to attack, another fleet engagement where courage might somehow prevail. Instead, a single shuttle approached under white flag. Ambassador David Cross, once again, volunteered to face his enemy directly. Admiral Kelvin, Cross broadcast on open channels, I am alone and unarmed. I am coming to your flagship to speak with you one final time. You can kill me, you can capture me, or you can listen. Your choice. Kelvin allowed the shuttle to land, curious about what this persistent human could possibly say that had not already been said. They met in the Admiral's ready room, 2 men who represented completely different philosophies about power and peace. Why are you here? Kelvin asked, his hand near his sidearm. Because I want you to understand something before this ends, Cross said, sitting without being invited. You think we are enemies. You think this is about conquest or revenge. You are wrong. Then what is it about? Fear, Cross said simply. We are terrified of what we can become in war. We spent 200 years building weapons we prayed we would never use. We joined your empire hoping we would never need them. Then you killed our children and all that hope died. Kelvin's hand moved closer to his weapon. So you punish us for being strong. No, we stop you from killing more children. There is a difference. Cross leaned forward. Admiral, I researched your family. You have 3 daughters. 2 are married with children of their own. You have 5 grandchildren. Did you think about them when you ordered the destruction of Redwood Station? Did you imagine how it would feel to lose them? Do not speak of my family, Kelvin said, his voice dangerous. I must, because in 3 hours Emperor Alvin will sign the surrender documents. This war will officially end, but you and your 70 ships refuse to accept peace. So now I have to decide what to do with you. Cross pulled out a data pad and showed Kelvin a display. Here are the locations of all your family members. We know where they live, where they work, where your grandchildren go to school. We have known since before the war began. Kelvin grabbed his sidearm and pointed it at Cross. If you harm them, I will kill you and everyone you love. Everyone I love is already dead, Cross said calmly, not moving despite the weapon. You killed them, but I have not harmed your family. I will not harm your family, because that would make me like you and I refuse to become like you. He stood slowly, ignoring the gun. You have 3 hours, Admiral. You can surrender and face trial for your crimes. You can continue fighting and watch your rebels die one by one. Or you can run to the edge of known space and disappear. I am giving you the choice I never got. The choice to save your family even though you do not deserve it. Cross walked to the shuttle bay, expecting a bullet in the back at any moment. It never came. 2 hours later, Kelvin's fleet dispersed. Most ships returned to Imperial space to accept amnesty. Kelvin himself vanished toward the galactic rim, his location unknown. The Treaty of Redwood was signed on the anniversary of the colony's destruction. Ambassador David Cross represented humanity. Emperor Alvin represented what remained of the Empire. The ceremony took place on the reconstructed colony world, among memorial gardens holding 2.3 million trees. 5 years after the treaty, Cross retired to those gardens. He spent his days tending the trees, each one representing a life lost. Visitors came from across the galaxy, wanting to meet the man who won a war through preparation and restraint. A young Imperial student found him one day, working soil around a sapling. Ambassador Cross, she asked hesitantly, I am writing a paper about the war. May I ask you a question? Of course, Cross said, not stopping his work. Do humans regret what happened, what you did to the Empire? Cross was quiet for a long moment, his hands still in the soil. Every single day, he finally said. We regret that your empire forced us to become something we fear. We regret that Admiral Kelvin chose pride over peace. We regret that millions died because some people cannot recognize when they are beaten. And we regret most of all that we were right to prepare for war, because that means we understood how dangerous the galaxy truly is. He stood, brushing dirt from his hands. But we do not regret surviving. We do not regret stopping your empire from killing more innocents. We do not regret being strong enough to protect ourselves. Remember that difference when you write your paper. We did not want this war. We wanted peace. But when peace became impossible, we chose survival, and we will make that choice every time. The student thanked him and left. Cross returned to his trees, tending a garden built on grief but growing toward hope. Around him, human and imperial citizens worked together, building a new colony on the ruins of the old. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Peaceful species are not weak. They are simply choosing a harder path. Push them far enough, threaten their survival, kill their children, and you discover why they chose peace in the first place. Because they remember what they become in war, and they are terrified of it.